Hello, and welcome to another vBrownBag session, right? Where the weekly IT learning video podcast where we bring you experts in the wide world of technology to talk about their favorite topics. It's basically a show and tell for tech geeks. And tonight's presentation, How Not to Suck as a Software Engineering Manager with Liz Martin Strong, right? Liz, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to start and we'll just go right into it.
Okay.
Tell us about this topic and just curious, how did you come up with this one?
So I have to give you a little bit of a backstory about me in order to give you some information on to why I came up with this topic. So I started working as a product manager several years ago, actually quite a few years ago. And my favorite thing to develop is software. I love working with software engineers. I just enjoy nerds and geeks, and technology is cool. And I just like bringing ideas to life. So that's my background and where I come from. And I was a product owner, product manager, very hands-on person. I later moved into more of a management role. And I found that having that product background was actually extremely helpful when starting to, manage teams of engineers. And so I ended up overseeing, 6 to 8 teams of engineers, depending on the different breakup of a particular platform that we were developing and overseeing their work. In my current role at Effectual, I oversee about 25 software engineers in our department. We do application modernization, net new work in all sorts of languages. And I want to say that because that will be a point that I want to make later. But you asked a question, how did I come up with this title? I have met so many engineers that are like, my boss just sucks. They don't get it. They ask for me to do all this extra work. I don't have time and focus to do my best work. And they don't understand my job. And so I thought about it and was like, you know what? I think we need to have more conversations about what technical leadership looks like, because just because somebody's good at coding does not necessarily mean they're going to be a good technical leader. There's some people skills and some other skills that are there and super important. And I think we should talk more about it.
Yeah. And I've seen that too, a lot of times too, where managers, even though they've got the technical acumen, they're just not really people persons. They're mostly driven towards results as opposed to driven towards understanding the compassion that needs to go into, rearing other individuals or leading other individuals. So that's a really good topic to talk about. So what are your do you have key points, or how would you like to
Yeah, I do. I have some key points. So lots of folks are like, well, how do you start working with a team? Like you don't just walk into a team and have them want to collaborate with you. I promise you, not every team that has had me walk in to be their new manager or new technical lead is like, woohoo. And in fact, most of the time they're just like, who the F is this lady and what is she doing here? They are not excited to see me. And so that's kind of a tough sell. So what I usually do walking into a brand new team is listen, mostly talk about what work they're doing, their stack, what are their problems, what opportunities they see for making their work easier, and just absorb all of the information. And I think coming in with that kind of curiosity, instead of this is how I'm going to run things, and to say, how are you guys doing it today? And what do you think you could do better? What would you like to see happen? And then just start prioritizing and chipping away at some of those things. Look for those themes. And that's how you build the trust. So you're walking the walk, not just talking the talk. The other one is to, set your expectations early and communicate them often. And so nobody's surprised about what you're expecting in terms of a deliverable or what you think good quality code and a good quality product looks like. Honestly, that's what I'm more concerned about is somebody else able to look at your code and understand what you're doing? check. Does your product work? That's it. I will let them decide how to stylistically get into it and all the standards. But those are the two things that I care about most, because at the end of the day, it's just a matter of preferences and setting standards, which is a team effort and not me coming in and saying, this is how it has to be. So I think those are some of the first few things I do when working with a new team, and coming in and like being excited. If you're not excited to be there, nobody else is going to be excited. So you might as well just try to have some fun. And that's, again, where that curiosity comes in and helps you be successful with building rapport with people.
Right. So from a leadership standpoint, what do you say is your leadership style, I guess, right?
I'm much more of a servant leader. I am really focused on how to empower people to do their best work and be their best selves at work. And I always add, be your best self at work, because I like to recognize people are three-dimensional and they have lives away from work. So respecting their time, respecting their schedule. I have a team that is distributed all over, the continental US. And I know who is in Eastern time zone and who's in Pacific, and I don't bother them outside of core business hours for them. That's really important. I don't like getting a phone call at 6 a.m. My guys in Pacific time zone don't like it either. And vice versa. The East Coast folks don't necessarily like getting late phone calls from West Coast. So those are the sorts of things, like treating them as people and remembering who they are as individuals. I think that's a big piece of it. What else can I tell you about? I mean, I have so many things to share and like stories from the field. I could go on forever, but I just
rattle them out. Just rattle them out.
Rattle them out. Yeah, okay.
Rattle them out.
I'll just go through my list of things. So I like to celebrate wins and then learn from mistakes. So lots of people talk about that. It's more a matter of how do you react when somebody's like, I screwed up. If you want people to talk about how they've screwed up or how a mistake was made, you have to make it safe for them to do that. And so, really make it safe for them to feel comfortable bringing a problem to you. And so that is that's one of those expectations I communicate early and often. Now, if you take down production 6 times in, a 6-month period, we may have a different conversation. But if you deploy code and you didn't realize that somebody had merged a branch in and that hadn't been tested before you deployed it, tell me that hasn't happened to everybody, right? It happens. It happens, especially if you're new. And you take down production, call it out, and then we'll quickly mobilize to take care of it. Or if you notice something, let's fix it and do a triage and an incident report and figure out where your issue came into place, and then talk about processes that you can put into place to prevent it in the future. Do I need to do better training for the team? Does my team need a very clear pipeline? Do we need to update our CI/CD pipeline, to have a later version? Is there some tech debt that hasn't been resolved that's causing issues? Those are the things that I want to get to the root of, because ultimately I don't want to work any harder than I really have to. I want to build cool stuff, not fix a bunch of problems. Sure. And so I think that's a really important thing for being a manager that doesn't suck, is to just say, we're all human. I think I have a really good story for you. So couple roles ago, I had a team of 8 that was fairly new to me. And they're like, hey, this is something to look out for. It's a problem. Stakeholders don't always talk about it, but if, this goes down, then they're going to start squawking. I'm like, great, whatever, fine. Check, got it. It's in my mind. Thing breaks. I know how to restart it. And suddenly I'm like, oh crap, what are we supposed to do? Who am I supposed to talk to? And so I forgot the process. I'm human. And that was something I brought to the team of, hey, you guys gave me documentation on how I needed to take care of this and what needed to be done. And I didn't do it. Here's how I'm going to do better in the future. And I think that's how you create that safety and that culture of accountability. Like, hey, I screwed up. We all do it. I'm not going to ever do it again because I've now have it tattooed on my arm, which hopefully we don't change the process because, you know, the laser removal is a little painful and a pain in the butt. But like, that's the sort of thing that's important to do to build trust. And along those same lines, another story from the field, I had a team that was really reluctant to trust the changes that I wanted to make their lives easier and to help change the perception within the larger organization. So business stakeholders had this idea that the software team was all no, and they weren't going to do what we wanted them to do. And they didn't care about business outcomes. They just wanted to build cool things. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. But I had to earn their trust in order to get them to buy in to help, you know, change their own perception or change the organization's perception. And so the way I did that was I took a shift of on call. I hate that. I don't like being on call. I hate being on call. I hate being woken up at 3 a.m. Also, tell me somebody that likes being on call. I don't like being on call. And they're like, you want to be on call? I was like, yeah, I want to know what this is like. And they're like, all right, here we go. Oh, it was my first and last shift, but it did suck. Just because there were some changes that needed to be made. We needed some expertise to come in with alerting, help improve alerting, and to get buy-in from business stakeholders that, hey, they weren't just saying no. There's a mountain of tech debt that hasn't been addressed and prioritized. So they were not even communicating with each other. And so that was a big aha moment for everybody. So not only did we get to change the perception of the software team was actually finally heard that the business needed to address some of the tech debt because they're getting woken up at 3 a.m. all the time and they don't want to. And so that was a big win in my book. And I'm like, all right, I guess it was okay. I got woken up at 3 a.m. I still didn't like it.
You know, not for nothing. I used to love on call, right? Way back when. Not so much anymore because obviously life changes. You know, you don't want to have to worry about it. But I can fully appreciate, though, Liz, what you just said about, you know, forgetting the process, being human, and here, you had to change the perception of the individuals. But what I find very interesting is that you did take a shift of on call, because most managers aren't going to do that. They don't want to necessarily lead by example. And that is a huge, huge check mark on any leadership, calendar or checklist,
right?
Because it just adds so much. But I also really, really like the fact that you're a servant leadership. You're respectful of the time. The work-life balance is important to you, because obviously we want individuals, those geeks to know that, hey, we care about you, right? Not just about the work and the output that you're producing. So that is just, I've got so many notes here. I don't even think I can go through them, but I just want to applaud you for that type of leadership style, because like you said, it's hard to get geeks to really all of a sudden just trust.
It's hard to get anybody to all of a sudden trust. I mean, it could be a marketing team, it could be a tech team. I mean, you have a new person walk in, and they're just like, let's see what you can do. And I don't blame them. I do the same thing. I'm like, all right, let's show me what you got. You look good on paper. But I can't take complete credit for it. I had a really good example early in my career when I was a product owner of an amazing engineering manager. And this guy was on every incident response issue, which there weren't a ton of them, but big deployments or big refactors of parts of the website, something would go down, right? And he was always at least available by phone. And I applaud that, because he had 60 engineers that reported to him. That guy was incredible. And he didn't get to code very often. He, dabbled when he could, but he spent most of his time managing people. And the way that he built trust and really earned the respect of his peers was he was right there with them all the time. And then he would go do a couple of other things that I think are really important for engineering managers to do. And I'll touch on them both right now. One, he would go talk to stakeholders and make sure all the requirements were gathered so the engineers didn't have to. So if there wasn't like a good product manager in place, he went and did that work, or made sure that the product manager was ready to come work with the team. And then had the technical lead kind of work with the product manager before getting the whole team involved. Right. I think that's really crucial because it was respecting a team's time and making sure that they were focused on doing what only they can do, which is sling some code, build some beautiful thing, munge the data, do whatever they do. The magic, they're magicians. And wizards, some of them prefer to be wizards. And he would really focus on making sure he was protecting their time. And so that is something that's really important to me. And at my role at Effectual, it's a consulting company. We do IT consulting and services. We're a partner. So we do strategy and then help people actually execute that strategy. And something that's really important for my team internal is I protect them from sales. Sales is very well intentioned, but my solution architect that sometimes needs some, expertise or other eyeballs on a proposal, he has to come through me. And sometimes he doesn't get it because I'm like, no, this is fine. You know what you're doing. We've done a million of these. You know how to do this. You don't need Charlie to come jump in and take a look at it. Also, Charlie's busy. He's doing the work. And I do have a good rapport with the sales team and my essays that I'm like, don't even look at them. They're dead to you. Don't think about them. Don't dream about them. Don't even consider calling them. Also, don't call them. Engineers don't pick up the phone. Nobody picks up the phone. So just like protecting their time and making it fun and funny, but also making sure that they get what they need in the process. So what you need is, somebody to come speak to our technical process or to speak to some stakeholders at a high level, I'm your gal. I will come and talk to whoever you need me to. If it means that my engineers can stay hands on keyboard, heads down on what they need to do. If it's like super in the weeds, like we're doing something with AI or it's I don't know. It's like a complete refactor. We're going to microservices and I'm going to pull in the big guns because that is not my area of expertise. And this brings me to another point that I think is really important and has been helpful and successful in my role as an engineer or an engineering manager is I am very upfront. I can't code. And I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm a product person and I want to build good software. So I can read error reports. I can read bug reports. I can dig in and find kind of maybe the systems that may be squawking. Like I am a Datadog expert, but I can't actually code. And so that is where I get to build a partnership with the technical lead, back to that trust piece, and say, here is where my skills end and where I need you to pick up and where I'm going to really lean on you to be the subject matter expert in this. And so I think that's a piece that's been really helpful for me. It makes me human. And when I say I can't code, I can't I am not going to build you a beautiful app that is going to do all the things. I am going to build you a Python script that says hello world. And we're going to say, oh, isn't that cute? Write you some Python. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, use some SQL query to look at a database and pull up some data. That's about it. I'm not completely illiterate, but I'm not going to be the person that is doing code reviews. I'm going to make sure that a senior person that is a good technical mentor is the technical lead that's doing those reviews. And that's something I think is really important to do as a as a engineering manager, if you're blessed to have a big enough team, which I am at this point.
25. Yeah, 25 people. That's huge. And again, leaning on the team, it shows vulnerability. Again, another trait that a good leader has, right? And your mentor obviously being available during those outage situations, or just being able to talk to the stakeholders and get some of the pressure off of the team. Those are big ones as well, right?
Yeah.
So wow, that's a really good example to have from a managerial perspective.
Yeah.
I will tell you, you've touched on the human aspect, and managers being there. And I have a really quick story for myself. I had a manager where I was doing some AS400 backups, and I messed up one of the backups, and I had to call IBM to come in. It was a Friday night. It was like the worst thing I could do, right? And messed up the system. And my boss came in, and he had a project that was due that Monday. So he came into the office and he said, "Hey, are you working with IBM?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." And he went and he locked himself in the room for 2 days, right? Working on the thing. And he would only come out periodically just to see, what was going on. But I was like, hello, need some additional help, and he was just like, "Yeah, you got this." And I was like, I don't know if I like that management style, because Monday came and it was basically, okay, the system came back up. Roger was here all night, and the last 2 days, and literally I was there for 2 days.
Oh my gosh.
Drove home, and at one point I was driving on the wrong side of the road.
Oh no, that is so dangerous. Oh gosh.
Very dangerous, So I learned a few things from that management style, which is, if you're not really going to be engaged with your team, then one, it creates, a tired situation for an engineer, but it also puts in the engineer's ear that, look, you don't really care about either the work, or you don't care about the engineer, right? And it got me to a point where I was just like, this is probably not the right place for me to be with somebody who, just isn't going to give me the time of day when an emergencies arise, and then to credit for when it got fixed. Right?
Yeah.
I was standing there, I was like, really?
Not even a thank you, not even a way to put in the time, like way to save the day.
Oh, I got a hey, he was here all weekend.
I'm really sorry. You deserve a coffee and a hug, like a virtual hug. I mean, you definitely don't want to touch anybody that doesn't want to be touched, but yeah, after 2 days of hard work, you definitely deserved a gold star or something. And yes, that is part of people's jobs sometimes. But you hit on the big piece, is that human element. Like, you're a person, and you just gave up your whole weekend to make sure something was resolved. Yes, you broke it, but you made sure it worked, and people were able to continue business as usual on Monday.
Right.
That's so important and so critical. And that's the type of thing that needs to be celebrated and applauded, and something that I make sure to do. And sometimes I get in trouble with HR for this, but is that if somebody pulls a long day and a long night, or bust a move to get something done, I'm like, you should disappear. Go take some time back. Be a human. Go sleep. Go get something to eat. I don't want to see your green dot on Slack. Bye. Yeah. And I think that's super important, because it's a balance. And then that person shows back up ready to go. They feel seen as people, and they're excited to get back to work because they've gotten to recover. And I think that's part of recognizing that folks are human, and that we're all just trying to do our best. We really are. I do have a story for you about servant leadership, and kind of how I see it play out, and how I make sure it plays out. So at Effectual, I had a customer, a very large customer that we've been working with for a long time, and a team of 6 that works on one of their work streams. And the customer was really unhappy and displeased with their velocity. And They're like, I don't think they're really, giving us a full 8-hour day and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've been on stand-ups. I have been on all these meetings where I see these people busting their butt to make sure that your product is good. I'm like, something smells funny. So we got with the team and we're like, what is going on? What would make your estimates more realistic? Do you feel like there's a problem with the estimation process? Give me feedback. What you got, team? And just listened. And we learned that there were some issues with the estimation process, that they didn't have all the information when they were doing the estimation, that all the acceptance criteria wasn't there from the customer, that changes were made at the last minute. Like those sorts of things started emerging. I'm like, this is a fixable problem. We don't have a velocity issue. We have a communication issue. And so that was something that we're able to dig into and really work to fix. Their velocity is great now. For the most part, every once in a while we get a little blip of something that's a little hairy, but who doesn't, right? That's just the nature of the game. So I will say that usually it's worth digging into a bit further and taking the time to ask people and then listen and see if you see any themes. And so I talked with my engineers in a group. I also messaged a couple of the quiet ones behind the scenes via Slack, like, hey, I know you don't want to talk in the group. What you got? And even worked with their like direct squad leads to make sure that I was getting all the information and they weren't just like, oh, scary boss ladies here. I will say no one's afraid of me at all. Especially when they learn I'm only 5'2". They're like, yeah, I'm not worried about you. So that's really, I think, something that's important and part of my servant leadership is to ask questions and get the full story. Now, that's not to say I don't hold my team accountable. I have come in with my angry eyes before and just like, what is going on? Just like, what is going on? Why are we not delivering? Why do we keep missing our deadline? Different team. Why do we keep missing our deadline? Well, excuse. I'm like, I hear excuses. Why aren't we making our deadline? You guys picked the deadline. Why aren't we hitting it?
Right.
So, and then working to resolve it and with the individuals to make sure it's not a individual contributor issue or if it's a team issue, like really digging into that. Mm-hmm. So, I will say that I like to think most of the people that I've ever had to part ways with were not surprised. But I did have a round of in a previous capacity where we were just contracting as a company and my team was not spared from it. And so that I know was a surprise, but it was also a surprise to me. But folks that have performance issues, it's pretty clear that it ain't working out. So there's a long conversation that happens there. So I think this touches on something that I know people have heard of Radical Candor by Kim Scott before. I take that to heart. There's some nuggets in there that are just about being honest and being clear and knowing in your heart that you're not being mean, you're being clear. So I try to be extremely direct with my team, not like, hey, you guys suck. I'm like, here are my expectations. Right. And here's what I expect of myself for you. Mm-hmm. And making sure that that's clearly understood. Again, going back to expectations, communicating them early and often. And so I think that radical candor is really important. I do have a story for you on that point. I worked with a new engineer. He was absolutely brilliant, one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he was having a hard time getting buy-in with the team. The customer just didn't want to listen to his recommendations. And he was getting increasingly frustrated. And so I just started paying closer attention in meetings that we were in and how he went about presenting his recommendations. I was like, I got it. And so we were in an office and I was like, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. And so we're walking down the street to go to get some coffee, and no one else is around. It's just the two of us walking to coffee. And I was like, hey, I know you're really frustrated because people aren't listening to your recommendations. We have to work on your bedside manner. They're not hearing you because you're coming across as a pompous ass. And I know that's not your intention. Right? That's radical candor. Like, here is what people are seeing. Here is what I'm hearing from them. And I'm witnessing it as well. You're not wrong, but your delivery is all off, my friend.
Yes.
And so it's getting lost. So let's talk about that. And I remember him laughing and saying, my bedside manner. I was like, yeah, if you were a doctor, I would tell you the same thing. Right. But it just kind of made light of something that wasn't light at all. I was telling him he was being a jerk. And that was his problem. And we've all met those engineers, right? They're brilliant. And they just need some coaching on how to speak to the plebes. That's the rest of us, myself included. Like, hey, man, I know your brain is way over there. Give us an opportunity to catch up. Right.
Or at least be in the same vicinity.
Yeah. Can I get on the same football field with you? Because that's all I think I'm really capable of. But I think those things are important. And I still meet with that engineer every once in a while and do coaching and talk with him. He's in a very senior lead individual contributor role. And we talk sometimes when he's frustrated and it's like, how did you deliver that message? And he's like, this again? We haven't worked together for almost 10 years and he still is working on that. That is his lifelong, I guess, work that he has to do is, his brain is just somewhere else, and reminding him that delivery is really important. He's gotten a lot better at it. I will say I've seen him give some advice recently and some technical guidance, and I was really proud of him. I was like, hey, can we talk about how far you've come?
Right.
So
I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you.
Oh man, I got like mama bear feels. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I'm like, look at that engineer go.
That's because of me.
Right. No, that is all him. That is all him.
That is awesome. I love that you corrected me on that. That is true. It is all him, right? You steered him in a little direction now?
I just shined a big spotlight on it and was just like, hey, here's the problem. Let's get you some tools for addressing it. I
don't know if a lot of managers could get away with radical candor. I think it probably depends too. Does it depend on the individual as well too, whether or not they want to be receptive to that? Because technically that conversation could have probably gone in a totally different direction. What are you talking about bedside manner, right? Who are you to tell me what to do, right? Or how to do it, right? Maybe they just don't know what they're talking about, right?
Absolutely. And I think I was in a place where I could give that feedback because they had asked me, why are people not listening to my advice?
Right.
And I was and they were very direct and blunt all the time. So I knew I could match that communication style. I've had other folks that I think I would probably make them cry if I had not necessarily actually shed tears, but get really defensive or extremely upset if I had responded in that way. And I think that is something that is a skill that it has been very useful to have in my job. I can talk to anybody. And I try really hard to match people's communication style, even if it is annoying and not my preference. So great example. I had another brilliant engineer had some very, very serious social anxiety, diagnosed social anxiety. He hated one-on-ones. He did not want to be on camera with me. He wanted to talk. He just didn't want to be on camera or on a phone call or anything like that. His preference was on Slack, written communication. And he would go for a while. And that was just his preference until he got comfortable with people. And he knew I was very open with the fact that I work, and then I jump on my Peloton and get my workout in. And I've always got my phone if something goes sideways. That booger would wait until he knew I was on my Peloton and he'd start blowing me up. And I'm like, because he knew I wasn't going to video chat him or anything like that. And so it helped me to, if I didn't want him to interrupt my workout, I would make sure to reach out to him on Slack and talk that way about any issues or check in. Now, eventually we got to the point where he was comfortable enough with me where he could get on a Zoom call and we could talk through it. We didn't live in the same area. But at first I was like, that tricky dude, he knows I'm not going to tell him, let's just jump on a call and talk through it. No, right. He knows. And so
that's another level right there.
Yeah, but it was really well done. That was smart. So matching people's communication style and preferences. I also had somebody that was like, can I just like talk to you and not have to write it out? I'm like, well, eventually you're going to have to write out documentation for it, but I can get it started for you in our conversation, that sort of thing. So it really depends on the individual, to your point of if you can have that radical candor. And I think this goes back to my very, very first point of trust. If the trust isn't there, then there's no way you can give that sort of feedback. And that trust is earned. And I will give a word of caution that once you lose that trust, it is so hard to get back. Okay. Yeah. So hard to get back. It's harder than getting it in the first place. So when I came into Effectual, this is a great example. I talked about how not all amazing, brilliant engineers are good at people management. And so the person that was the previous practice director he's still at Effectual, is an amazing engineer, absolutely smart, sharp individual. And he was struggling in his role. And the reason was, one, he was doing the work of two people. He was doing all of the people management, and he was working on individual projects and customers and mentoring people. So let's just like say the guy bit off more than he could chew. And I don't think he was particularly excited to be giving over the director role to me initially. And then, there was the vulnerability of, hey, I need you. I can't do X, Y, Z. And this is where you and I are going to be partners. And building that trust and that relationship to where now I can poke fun of him in front of the rest of the department and be like, y'all want this guy back? And he'll be like, I don't want it. I don't want to be back. That sort of thing, where you have to build that trust. I proved to him that he could trust me, that I would take care of his people, because that was the perception, right? I built this team. These are my people. I would take care of his people. I would take care of the concerns, and I would let us work smarter and in a more streamlined way. And I don't know whether it's the cold plunges he's doing or if he is really finding a better work-life balance, but he is so much happier on calls, to where my boss interacted with this individual recently, and he's like, it's like a whole new guy. And this is the guy we knew was here. It's like, yeah, you guys had put him in a role that isn't playing to his strengths. And letting him do things that are interesting. And so he was busy managing people when really what he wanted to do, he wanted to proof of concept of something. He wanted to build a proof of concept of something and then coach the team on how to implement it. That's a better fit for that person. So he's going to give me so much crap later. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you talked about me. Anyway, he is one of my favorite people. And he is a pain in the butt and a diva. He has a diva name, by the way, Miley Cyrus. He comes in like a wrecking ball sometimes. But we have trust, right? Where we can have that fun culture within our team of, oh, here comes Miley Cyrus coming in. And everybody can get a good laugh and say, he's actually going to drop some really insightful wisdom nuggets. And let's pay attention to what they have to say.
I think a lot of managers also don't take into consideration what you just mentioned, culture, right? I think culture also has a big deal to I guess culture is really a good way to kind of measure how everything is working within the organization. But can you talk to how it affects a software manager or engineering manager? What are the effects of it, or how does it actually help an environment?
Yeah, I don't want to be in an environment that I don't want to work in.
Mm.
That let me just say that. Like, if I'm not enjoying it, I can't imagine why anybody else would be. So I definitely think setting the tone, setting the culture is super important. And a way to do that is to uh, focus on what's important to you, one. And it can be what are the company values, and then what are your team's values. So different teams have different ideas of how they should be, executing a vision based on their skill set and their areas of expertise. And in software, I think that it's important to create a culture of sharing and learning and continuous uh, development, like personal, professional development. Because here's something kind of crazy. I'm gonna crazy secret, Roger. No one else in tech knows this. Not everybody. No one actually knows everything about technology. There's no way. No one could possibly know that.
There's at least
there's
4 or 5
no
people that
way.
are just going to stop the video right now and be like, yeah, no, we're done.
Yeah, exactly. They know everything, and I hope they're very well paid for knowing all the things. And they should hit me up on LinkedIn, because I would love to, have them come on as a contractor and leverage their expertise in being the almighty, all-knowing, all-powerful. But not everybody knows everything, and so there's a way to share information and knowledge and skills, and then it raises everybody up. And that setting that expectation and that standard is usually what transforms a culture within a team to one that I want to be in. To be honest, I'm a curious person. I'm also very silly and playful, and I like learning new things. I know, right? Like, this lady, no way. And so I like learning new things. And that's what I want my team to be. I want to hear about how obsessed you are with Material UI. I want to hear about it. I want to hear about React Native and Next.js. Tell me all about it. I want to hear about these things.
Mm.
I want to hear about how you have beautiful mind in this database. We're going to talk about that. But I'm curious and I want to hear more about it. And you know who else probably wants to hear more about it? Your peers. And so creating a opportunity for people to share is part of how setting that culture and setting that tone is so important. And it creates collaboration. So that's hard to do for a lot of folks that have remote teams. And so I have two mechanisms that I'm taking them for a test drive. Your mileage may vary. I have the fabulous water cooler chit chat, which is an informal meeting where you come and you just get to know your peers. And we talk about, what did we talk about today? We're talking about cold plunges today. We do it every other week. And we were talking about cold plunges, which is why I thought about it. Anyway, it was a topic. It was very relevant. But also your life outside of work or something new that you're learning. At Effectual, not all of my engineers are all on the same project. So a lot of times they'll share something cool they've done for a particular customer. So I have one guy that's on a machine learning work stream for a very large customer. And he's like the lone ranger on this work stream. He's like working all by himself. Not ideal, I know. He's working with their internal team. And to hear him get to come back and kind of share some of the things that they're working on, the other team's like, that's really cool. Tell me more about that. And that's an interesting way to share knowledge. And I don't know for a fact, because I don't read everybody's Slack, but I know that people have connected with one another and asked for help or advice after getting to know people on the water cooler chit chat. And I call it water cooler chit chat because if you were in a physical office, you would get to know your peers at like the coffee maker or the water cooler or passing in the hallway. One of my favorite DevOps engineers, he is brilliant. I love calling people brilliant. He's very good at what he does. He's also kind of a curmudgeon, which I have a soft spot for. And we worked together physically in an office, like physically co-located in an office. And his desk was right by the coffee maker. And every morning I would plop down next to him waiting for the coffee. And he'd be like, go away. And I'm like, nope, I got 5 minutes. And I have brought that guy to 2 other businesses with me. Like he leaned into it. He's like, you're really annoying, but I like the cut of your jib. This is good. You know what you're talking about. You're fun to work with. I can roll my eyes and be crotchety, grumpy old man that I am deep down. He's too young to be a crotchety old man, but he is like deep down. He is the guy yelling, "Get off my lawn." But we got to know each other because I would sit down waiting for coffee. So virtually, you have to make an opportunity for that and kind of force it to happen. So we also do, so it alternates every other week. We have water cooler chit chat, and then we have munch and learn. And I call it munch and learn because we're all over the country and you may be getting a snack and I am having lunch. And, or you're having lunch really late, which I feel really bad. We need to talk about your schedule and making sure you eat at a decent time. So I care that deeply because you got to have fuel for that brain so you can type the things. So yeah, we do munch and learn, and it's everybody from, our QA engineer telling them what kind of acceptance criteria they really value and need in order to fully test something. And when they cut corners, how annoying it is and like what good looks like. All the way to, I had one of our salespeople come in and talk about how do we sell services? You need to know, engineer, because they're making sure you've got work. And so everything in between. Somebody talked about Terraform one time, or all sorts of things, and kind of took us for a walk through. Like, so I just got my Terraform certification, and this is something I did that's kind of cool. Let's do it together. So sharing that knowledge is really useful and important. And to really put the bow on my point that I have taken way too much time jabbering on about to make, that is how you set culture. And in a place that is remote, I do it in Slack. So I always read things. I respond with a little emoji, even if I'm not going to respond with a comment. I make sure my team knows that I see them. I'm also very playful there. When I took over the practice, I joined the team's private channel with a GIF of the Kool-Aid man. And like, that is how I set the tone of, I'm busting in. And I think that's important. And at least for me, because that's the kind of place I want to work. I want to work at a place where you can be professional and playful and silly and have fun. Not that it's always a good time. It's not always a good time. It's a job. But I want to have fun more often than not. I want to enjoy and get excited about what my peers are working on. I want to rally the team to make a customer's dream come true. That's what I do. So I guess that's how I create culture. Again, your mileage may vary. Everybody's got their own flair and their own style. But I've learned from some really incredible people along the way, and I have borrowed, shamelessly stolen things I learned and made it my own. And I can't take credit for these ideas. They're not original to me, but my implementation is my own.
Right. That's awesome. So as you were telling me about the Kool-Aid man popping through, I just remembered a manager that I had way back when. And we had gotten to the point where we were constantly working late because we were on this, major project, and he brought in some air guns, like the Nerf guns, right? And handed them out. And at first, I'm thinking to myself, this is not a good idea, right?
Yeah.
But it got to a point where we were having Nerf wars like every other night, and the floor was pretty much empty. So we run around and, you see us skulking around the corner, right, and shooting at each other. And I mean, it was such a great time. It didn't, the cleaning people didn't really like us very much, but
I'm sure they didn't. No. No.
A couple of times you'd see them come up with like, oh God, they're playing again. And then you walk away. So, but we just had so much.
Those interactions are so important too, because now you're more comfortable bringing a real problem to that person because you have a relationship with them and how to deliver it really. And you can trust them. So I think that's a big way to be a manager that doesn't suck, is just like treat people, the golden rule, treat them how you want to be treated. Make a work environment that you want to work in. Make it like if you're not excited to log in to work, your team probably isn't either. I promise you. If you're dreading it, your team probably doesn't enjoy working either. So like get excited about what you're doing. Yeah, dropping truth bombs there.
Oh, bam, right? That whole radical candor coming out.
I know.
I'm waiting for the eye. I'm waiting for the eye.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And I do tell my teams, because I have so many, and I don't get to be on all of the meetings with them. I try to make sure to check in periodically. But what I have told them all is, if I show up in a project meeting unexpected, there's a problem. And we're going to be resolving it because you don't want to see me. You want me to go doing other things to make your life better. So, yeah.
Wow. Again, some really good points, the trust piece, the servant leadership piece, the, being upfront, radical candor, which to me, I'm going to go and research that one a little bit more because, maybe I don't, just want to make sure I'm constantly talking to people the right way, right? And then developing a partnership, not only with your team, but also with the management, that was good. The water cooler and munch and learn. Now, I've seen a lot of companies do the munch and learn thing lunch and learn thing that they've tried. And it often doesn't really go very well, partially because, like you said, some of them are thinking about lunch, some of them thinking breakfast, some of them, depending on where you are in the world and what time the meeting is, so, and I think also it may come down to probably the topic, if the topic is really geared and focused towards the team as opposed to just focus on something arbitrary that, why are we giving up a whole hour to sit here to listen to, somebody having a conversation about widgets, it's not part of anything that we're going to be doing. And, so I think that's where the failure happens with a lot of lunch and learns. But that water cooler piece, I mean, not for nothing, that is gold, because I think that most teams, especially when they're so remote, they're not able to really engage with one another, get to know one another. And you don't have that, come into the office and we'll all sit down and have lunch together or something, so you have to find a way to be able to get them to kind of get to know each other, because as you said before, you want to build trust. You want to build camaraderie. You want to build that. And in many cases, the different personality styles or, distance, all those things play a big part in the productivity and the value of productivity that you're going to get from individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that most of your listeners are probably like, snooze fest. I wanted some tech talk. This is important to making technology happen. I mean, nothing makes me happier than seeing my team go off the deep end on some, like down the rabbit hole and through the, never land to explore some technical topic or problem and watch them work through something together. It just gives me goosebumps. It makes me happy. It's like that. I want to see that happen all the time. That's what I want to see happen. And so if there are issues with your team having time to do that creative work, it is creative work, having bandwidth to do that creative work, then what are we even doing?
Oh, wow.
So
Mm.
doesn't matter like all the cool tech, like you're not going to get to do that AI project because, you're busy doing backlog grooming and talking about how you're going to point this thing again for the 18th time. So.
Awesome. I think one thing though that we may have skirted over that is probably really important for not sucking at being a software engineering manager, and that's curiosity.
Yeah.
I first of all, you have enlightened me. I every time you say the word, I mean, you start to glow. Your face, your smile, everything just pops, and I'm like, that's interesting. Every time you've said it on this call, I've just seen how you just light up. And I didn't really realize how much a engineering manager would really want that much, involvement or, take that curiosity and go with it. But I think it's the way you presented it earlier, where you said, hey, tell me about such and such. And then you're like, go ahead. Tell me.
Tell me all about it. What? My eyes are going to glaze over after a while because I can't go that deep with you. But right. I'm learning and I'm genuinely curious. And I think that goes back to the engineering manager that I saw really kick ass. Kick some butt. And he was always curious. He always wanted to see people's proof of concept. And he was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. And he was a very quiet individual. But he was genuinely curious about what people were working on and what they were doing. And I think that has served me well. And I can't say that that's something I necessarily had modeled a ton from other software engineers. That's the product background coming out in me. It's just, I'm genuinely curious how things work. And, I've taken things apart at my desk before because I'm just like, why is this not working correctly? IT is like, oh my God, please don't do that.
Right.
But that curiosity is absolutely key to being a good manager, and making sure that you are enjoying working with the people that you're managing, because it can be a slog. You can be focused on the things that just suck about managing humans. There are a lot. There really are.
Oh, absolutely.
I like to focus on the things that don't suck about managing humans, like my guy that had improved on his communication and delivery of his ideas. Watching somebody really step into their ownership of being a subject matter expert in a particular slice. Watching somebody deploy something that they're really proud of. Those are the things that really fill my cup and make the HR issues and disciplinary issues and performance improvement plans and blah, 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 hiring and salary negotiation crap, makes it all worth it, right? Getting to see those things.
That is awesome. Awesome. I know we're actually at time, so I'm going to give you a moment to give us some final thoughts. Again, you've given so many great tidbits already, but is there any final thoughts that you have that you'd want to impart?
I think the last thing I want to impart is always ask for feedback. So if you're going to be giving some very direct feedback, get some thick skin and get ready to take it. Ask for that feedback. So Miley Cyrus gives me very direct feedback. My superiors give me very direct feedback, and I ask for it often. How's my team doing? How do you want us to grow? What do you see as some of our opportunities? And I ask it from everybody from my QA engineer to my front end engineer to my technical lead to my COO. What do you want to see different? How do we need to keep getting better? Because if we sit on our laurels and think that like, oh, I got it figured out, Something's going to change. The tech's going to change. Everything's going to change, and you're going to be playing catch up. So definitely always ask for that feedback, because you can grow as much as you can help your team grow.
Right. Awesome. Liz Martin Strong, thank you so much for giving us all this information on how not to suck as a software engineering manager. This has been a great conversation. Love the energy. Thank you so much again, and wish you a good night. To our audience, wherever you are, thank you again so much for watching our show, and have a good night.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.